uh, almost afternoon. I don't know. Let's just tie up all the all the points we have made so far in philosophy of science in the course of our lecture this semester. I'm waiting for guys to come online. I can't see anyone yet. Where are they? Where are they? Where are they? Waiting for you online. Where are they? Please, if you are in, say hi. Let me see you, especially the guys for the defense. Especially the guys for the defense. If you are in, I can hear you. Just say hi. Let me see your screen. I'm taking time so that the guys on defense can join in because they have special tasks to do. Yeah, I can see you. I can see you. Clems, good morning. Good morning. Udo Cyril, good morning. Mekus, good morning. Irenius, good morning. Antonio Ume, I can see you. Good morning. Who again? Ofodile Francis, I can see you. Who again there? Emmanuel Woye. Okay, Emmanuel Woye. Yeah, you have been very active. I can see you. Who else is there? Don Zilo, I can see you. Victor Izuchuku, I can see you. Thank you for the greetings. Antonio Bartholomew Chidebele, I can see you. Obunigwe, I can see you. Who else is there? Victor Izuchuku, Nabife Benjamin, I can see you. Awok John Paul, thank you for the greetings. I can see you. Okay, I have 17 in attendance for now. And I guess the bulk of those that are doing defense are here already, because I'm going to reel out the procedure for the defense before I go on to do the revision. Because the main purpose of this class is to ensure you are adequately prepared for the exams. So I just hope those that are in for the defense are here, because I'm going to, map out the procedure immediately. Now for the defense, if they are not here yet, communicate with your brothers that are already online. For the defense, you have 12 in number. Wankwo Emmanuel, Wodo Francis, Wono Pascal, and so on. Obasi Anthony and the rest of you. Now, I have questions 1 to 12. This is what you are going to do. I have questions 1 to 12. You have to go. I told one of your colleagues to share my WhatsApp contact with you. If you already have it, first of all, I have questions 1 to 12. You have to go immediately, right away, to my WhatsApp and indicate the question you want to answer. Just say hi, sir. Type your name and your reg number and say question number 1 or question number 2 or question number 3. Just choose between 1 to 12. Just drop it there. Tell me the one you are going to answer immediately. Just indicate. Now, when you indicate, come back online, stay online, and listen. I'm going to read out the questions immediately. Question 1 to 12. Now, when you hear the one you have chosen already that you want to answer, you will now listen to the question here online. Now you will not type the answer. You have to type the answer here in the comment section on this live, just like you are saying good morning, sir, on the comment section. Type the answer there with your reg number. Don't put your name. With your reg number. With your reg number. With your reg number, rather. With your number. Registration number. Then you go online you go to the WhatsApp platform. You will now use voice note as short as possible. I don't want lengthy notes. Cap up, make a summary of a voice note of your answer there. I want to hear you speak, because from how you speak, I will know whether you know it or not. You drop your voice note there. I hope the procedure is clear. 3 things. 1, go right now on WhatsApp and indicate the question you are going to answer. Just pick a choice. And then write your name there and your reg number, your registration number. Then come back online, listen to the questions as I'm going to call them now. I'm going to read out 12 questions based on your assessment. Now, when you hear the one you have chosen, type the answer in the comment section here on YouTube without mentioning your name. Just put your registration number there. Type the answer. Right? Then go back to WhatsApp. And do a voice note message of the same answer. I hope you. Now, let me read out the questions. Question number 1, if you have, please, you must have indicated the question you want to answer before I read them. I have marked the time I'm reading these questions. If I see your response on WhatsApp, your choice of question, after I begin to read, I have begun reading these questions out, it means that you are cheating. I will not accept your answer. Do you understand me? It's very, very clear now. Now, I believe all of you have chosen your question, the 12 of you. I'm going to start reading out the questions now. Question number 1. If you have chosen question number 1, this is question number 1. Define, elaborate, philosophy of science. Define elaborately, philosophy of science. Define elaborately, philosophy of science. That's number 1. Number 2. Trace the origins and historical development of philosophy of science, especially the ancient and medieval period. Number 2. Trace the origin and development of philosophy of science, especially in the ancient, medieval, and Renaissance period. Question number 3. Identify key philosophers of science between the 18th and 19th century, and briefly mention their contributions to the development of philosophy of science. Question 3. Identify key philosophers of science in the 18th and 19th century and briefly indicate their contribution to the development of philosophy of science. Question number 4. Identify and explain some of the core components and central themes of philosophy of science. Identify and explain some of the core components and central themes in philosophy of science. 5. Question number 5. Expose the nature of philosophy of science as much as you can. Expose the nature of philosophy of science. That is question number 5. Question number 5. Expose the nature of philosophy of science. Number 6. Question number 6. Question number 6. Discuss the scope of philosophy of science. Discuss the scope of philosophy of science. Discuss the scope of philosophy of science. Question number 7. Elaborate on the metaphysical and ontological scope of philosophy of science. There you discuss the reality, entities, and structures of philosophy of science. Question number 7. Elaborate on the metaphysical and ontological scope of philosophy of science. Deliberate on the reality, entities, and structures I hope it's clear. I hope it's clear. Question number 8. Question number 8. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm still here. Come in, please. Okay, question number 8. Question number 8. Discuss on, is still on the scope, but here your deliberation will be on the domain-specific philosophies. Scope in specific sciences. Discuss scope in specific sciences with emphasis on domain-specific philosophies. That is question number 8. It is still discussion on scope of philosophy of science, but emphasize on domain-specific philosophies. That's question number 8. So 9, you have to tell me the importance of the philosophy of science to the church. As a seminarian, what do you think is the importance of philosophy of science to you? To you as a son of the church, as a seminarian. What is the importance of philosophy of science to you? To you. That is question number 8. Sorry, that is question number 9. Importance of philosophy of science to you as a student of philosophy, as a seminarian. That is question number 9. Importance of philosophy of science to you as a seminarian, as a student of philosophy. That is question number 9. Then number 10 and 11, the same question. Importance of philosophy of science to mankind. 10 and 11, the same question. Importance of philosophy of science to mankind. 10 and 11, the same question. Importance of philosophy of science to mankind. And then the last question, number 12. Identify and explain key elements concerning the general notion of science. Okay, key elements concerning the general notion of philosophy of science. Number 12. Identify and explain some of the key notions concerning, some of the key elements concerning the general notion of philosophy of science. I hope it's clear enough. I hope it's clear enough. You have gotten the 12 questions. Now go type your answers here in first. Type it elaborately in the question section. Then go to the WhatsApp and use a voice note and explain your answer. I hope it's clear enough. That's for that. Now, concerning our forthcoming assessment, examination, there are important things I feel you should know. I'm still looking at this online attendance. It's poor. It's poor. Let me just see what the time is. We're already how many minutes in? We're already 20 minutes in. And the attendance is still 20 something. If I don't get up to 50, I will just shut down the online and go. It shows that you are not serious. That's what it means, because I don't see the reason why I will have something like this with you and you will not be present. So I'm looking at, because I wanted to do a comprehensive revision with you, and only 29 persons are here. It's unacceptable. So if I will just spare some time because I have another class with some other persons. I will just spend another 10 minutes looking out. If I don't see up to at least 50 persons online, that will be all for this revision because I won't waste my time. Fair enough, I've already settled the guys that are here for their assessment. So that is just it. Because I hate nonsense. Please, for the guys reacting to the presentation questions, I hope you got the questions I've asked. If it is not clear, please, you can go. I'm still here on WhatsApp with you. You might, or you may indicate if you didn't hear the questions that concerns the number you have chosen. I can repeat, but I presume you heard me clearly. If you did, attend to the questions, please, immediately, so that you can join us for the revision class. That is, if we are still going to continue with it, because at the moment, I'm not sure. There are just 27 persons in attendance, which is very, very poor for a class of almost 90 students. It's too poor. So I'm still waiting. We are 35 now. We are 35. Still poor. Probably. Anyway, let me just proceed. I already know you guys are not, and you are not studious. You are not serious with your academics. So let me not punish the serious ones because of the poor attitude of the unserious ones. Just have to proceed. Now, already you know what to expect. You know what to expect. I told you already. You know what to expect. You have to be prepared. You have to be very, very adequately prepared. You have to be very, very adequately prepared.
Welcome to Alipu.
Sorry for the noise in the background.
AUX mode.
Now, you have to be very, very adequately prepared. Now, should you get a question on the problem of induction? Already you know that the problem of induction concerns David Hume. You should know that at this stage. It involves David Hume. You have to be able to tell me, what David Hume means, what the problem of induction means for David Hume. What the problem of induction means for David Hume. And you should be able to tell me the significance of the problem of induction for scientific knowledge. Who is David Hume? Why did he propose the problem of induction? What are the types of induction for David Hume? What does David Hume mean by demonstrative argument and probabilistic argument? Which of these two represents induction and which of the other one represents deduction? What exactly is the problem of induction for David Hume, and why does he consider it a problem? What is it that inductive reasoning has that Sorry, what is it that deductive reasoning has, deductive logic has, that inductive logic hasn't, that makes David Hume to consider inductive logic non-demonstrative? These are very, very important. These are very, very important. You should be able to itemize the key factors around which David Hume developed his arguments against inductive reasoning. Habits of association, cause and effect, uniformity of nature. Habits of association, cause and effect, uniformity of nature. How does these factors, how do these factors contribute to the problem of induction? How do they? What are the reactions of other philosophers like Quine, like C. Tempels, the what was his name again? The riddle of induction, the Raven paradox. These philosophical experimentations, how did they further mirror or demonstrate the Raven paradox? How do they further mirror or demonstrate the problem of induction? Remember, we talked about it. We talked about the Raven paradox, paradox, and so on of them. So you have to be able to touch on all of them. But most importantly, just note that David Hume is the prominent figure you should analyze while talking about the problem of induction. But you should be able to touch on the riddle of induction, the Raven paradox, and so on and so forth. Touch on Karl Popper's view too on induction. Remember, Karl Popper has a view on induction. He described induction as mere conjectures. Why does he consider induction as mere conjectures? He also contributed to that debate. So the scoring formula is very, very elaborate. Hume's problem of induction explained while attaching prominent figures that contributed to that debate should fetch you 10 marks. Then the impact it has on scientific knowledge, if you discuss it very well, is going to fetch you another 8 marks, making it 18. Then the clarity of your exploration and explanation, the logicality, the connections, the methodology will fetch you another 2 points, making it 20. Now, if there are any important terms you don't understand, the Raven paradox, the induction, the types, you may ask questions in the comment section whenever because this live will process some time before I'm able to assess it afterwards. If I see the comments and they are logical questions and I consider them necessary to help you, I'm going to reply, because right now I presume you know all these things. What I'm trying to do here is to give you a kind of guide so that you will be sure exactly what to anticipate, and it will enable you to prepare more appropriately. Now, you are still going to see a question on Popper's falsificationism. You should be able to know the strength of Popper's preferred approach or method of philosophy of science, which is falsificationism. Know exactly what it means. Know the strength and weaknesses, and know the factor that led Popper to propose falsificationism as the best method or approach to science and philosophy of science. Know the historical circumstance that led him to postulate falsificationism. Know the strength, know the weakness, and be able to evaluate it in contradistinction to other philosophical scientific methods. I hope you understand. I hope it's clear. Falsification at this moment, you should be able to understand it very, very well. You should. You should be able to pinpoint the primary and secondary philosophical and scientific methods which Popper, rejected while postulating his approach to science, falsificationism. You should know. You should know this. How does falsificationism contradict or relate with the Durkheim-Quint problem? How does it relate and contradict verificationism? How does it relate or even contradict inductionism? These things are very, very important. Has it any relationship with scientific anarchism? Feyerabach's preferred method. If so, how? But most importantly, know what it is. Be able to elaborate, to explain it convincingly. Know the strength, know the weaknesses, and know the historical circumstances that led to Karl Popper postulating falsificationism. Okay, I can see somebody asking that I repeat question 9. Please permit me to go back. Question 9. Question 9 concerns the importance of philosophy of science to you as a seminarian and as a student of philosophy, especially to you as a seminarian.
Welcome to 爱理普.
AUX mode.
So, the importance of philosophy of science to you as a seminarian. That is question 9. I hope you got it right now. Now, the scoring formula for the question of falsificationism, should you find it in the exam, is your explanation and exposition of the theory and the historical circumstances that led to it in contradistinction to other methods postulated by philosophers and approaches in philosophy of science will fetch you 10 marks. Your exposition and explanations regarding or concerning the strength and method of falsification will fetch you an extra 8 marks. If you do it well, you have to be elaborate and logical. And then your style, your approach, your method will fetch you another 2 marks. Very, very crucial. Very, very crucial. Very, very crucial. Now, this thing I am doing now makes the whole thing easier for you. That is, if you are a studious student, if you are studious, because I don't see the reason why I will give you this kind of elaborate blueprint, or if you like, clue to what to expect, and you will not go on to perform incredibly well. That will be disappointing. Now, we are still going to have you examined on some questions, on a question concerning Kuhn. Okay, Thomas Kuhn. You should know his concept of paradigms and scientific revolutions. You should. In fact, you ought to. You must. You can't escape it. What does Thomas Kuhn mean by paradigms? What does it mean by scientific revolutions? Which method before him does he a kind of react against while postulating paradigms and scientific revolutions? What are the implications of his preferred philosophical method and approach to science? What are the implications of philosophy and science? So you must know the concept, the practical implications and significance of Thomas Kuhn's concept of paradigms and scientific revolution. You must know it. Be able to give concrete scientific implications of this. You should. That question is direct. There's nothing much to say there. There's nothing much to say there. If you recall, Thomas Kuhn had argued that science does not advance cumulatively, right? That science does not advance cumulatively, like, if you like, historically. Science does not move as a wholesome current, but through alternative periods of normal science and revolutionary changes. So science, in other words, is not a logical continuum. Science doesn't proceed as a whole, like a wholesome reality, but it is, if you like, revolutionary or reactionary, based on revolutionary changes. And what does he mean by paradigm? For him, paradigm refers to the shared worldview, methods, assumptions, exemplars, and standards that guide a scientific community. This is what he meant by a paradigm. A paradigm for Thomas Kuhn refers to the shared worldview, the methods, the assumptions, the exemplars, and standards that guide a scientific community. The regulations, the methods, the obligations, if you like, the models, the exemplars, the assumptions that bind, guide, direct, shape the decisions of scientists and all those involved in the scientific community is what he called paradigms. So what Thomas Kuhn suggests is that during normal science, researchers solve puzzles within an accepted paradigm. Okay? When scientists try to proffer solutions to problems or to produce technology, they do that following particular paradigms, following particular exemplars. That method that governs what the scientists do, how they go about resolving human problems through technologies, through experimentation, that methodology that governs them, the role they play, the decisions they make, is what he calls paradigm. However, he suggests that anomalies, which are observations the paradigm cannot explain, would gradually accumulate, because science, like he said, is not holistic. It's not a wholesome current. So even when you try to apply this paradigm, sometimes anomalies may arise. There are things that may arise that the scientists may not be able to arrive to resolve following those pre-existent paradigms, methodologies, and those are what he calls anomalies. Paradigms may not be able to explain these things, and so they accumulate. So what does Kuhn suggest? He says when these anomalies that already established methods, standards, presumptions, assumptions, exemplars cannot legislate upon or resolve, when the anomalies intensify, a crisis emerges, and that crisis leads to a scientific revolution, a kind of shift to a new paradigm. Example, you have it in the history of science. There was a shift at some point from Newtonian physics to Einsteinian physics. So, and that leads to his idea of paradigm shifts. Therefore, paradigm shifts are not purely rational or evidence-based. They are not. They involve sociological, psychological, and historical factors. I hope you are getting my point. I'm just trying to refresh your memory. So, competing paradigms are often incommensurable sometimes, meaning they use different concepts and standards, making direct comparison quite difficult. You have already done this, and I'm just trying to recap to make you know the direction I would like your discussion to go. So what Thomas Kuhn actually portrays is that scientific change is discontinuous and contingent. Scientific change based on his idea of paradigm and paradigm shift. One implication there is that what? Scientific change are what? Are discontinuous and they are contingent. So he actually challenged the traditional view of science as a steady progression towards truth. For him, science is not steady. It's not progressive. It's revolutionary. It's reactive. So your discussion should flow according to this direction. Be able to explain paradigm and paradigm paradigm shifts as consequence of scientific revolutions for Thomas Kuhn. Elaborately, that will fetch you 10 points. His idea of revolution to explain, you should be able to explain it in relation to the idea of paradigm and paradigm shift. It will fetch you another 8 marks. Then your clarity of thought. In all of this, be able to show the significance. How does this impact on philosophy and scientific method and even science itself? I hope it's making sense. I'm just looking at the attendance. It's still poor. We just have 40 persons right there. But it's still good. It's all good. It's all good. Let's see how far we can go. Now, as we are going through this, I can see your comments on screen. If there's any aspect I touched upon that is not so clear or vivid in your mind, feel free to just ask the question. It's on my screen. I will react. I will a kind of bring it lower. I get me, so that I will make sure I find a way to make it more or clearer to your perception. Now, we still have a question on Lakatos, his research paradigm. You should be able to, you must, in fact, know Lakatos' research paradigm and see if you can draw comparison with Lakatos' research programs rather with other scientific methods postulated by philosophers like Thomas Kuhn, Karl Popper, and Paul Feyerabend, especially Thomas Kuhn, Paul Feyerabend, and the rest of them. How does Lakatos' research program compare or relate with maybe Kuhn's paradigm shift and scientific revolution, or Paul Feyerabend's anarchistic scientific method? Remember what Paul Feyerabend says in Against Method. All right. So I'm basically talking about Emil Lakatos. If you remember rightly when we were in the class, he developed the concept of research programs as a middle ground, if you remember very well, as a middle ground between Popper's rational falsificationism and Thomas Kuhn's sociological account of paradigms. That's what he did. He was a kind of mediator, just like Kant mediated between rationalism and empiricism. Emil Lakatos tried to mediate between Karl Popper's rational falsificationism and Thomas Kuhn's sociological account of paradigm. How did they achieve this? Now, what is a research program for him? For Emil Lakatos, a research program consists of a hard core. A hard core is something that we can describe as fundamental assumptions that are not abandoned. In fact, that cannot be abandoned. If you like, core foundations to science. Example, Newton's laws of motion. They are fundamental assumptions that is hardcore. When you are doing a research, there are. Remember, we'll talk about conservationism as one of the key features of scientific hypothesis and theory. Right? If you remember very well, that is what a hardcore is for Emil Lakatos in his research program. So those fundamental assumptions that cannot be set apart or aside, that cannot be abandoned, is what Emil Lakatos called a hardcore. Then there is what he called in his research program. There's what he called the protective belt. The protective belt are, if you like, auxiliary hypotheses that can be modified when faced with anomalies. So while the hardcore cannot be changed or set aside or abandoned, they cannot be manipulated because they are foundational. The protective belts are auxiliary hypotheses. They can be modified, they can be subtly restructured when a researcher faces abnormally in the course of scientific experimentation and research. Remember, I already explained what anomaly is. Remember, right? Now, then there's another aspect of research program, what he called a positive heuristic. A positive heuristic, you can use this idea to capture it. Positive heuristic are kind of guidance on how to develop the program, if you like. Guidance on how to develop your research program, how to go about your research. Then negative heuristic concerns rules about what cannot be questioned. What cannot be questioned. You can see that negative heuristic are kind of assumptions or instructions set down to protect the hardcore, because the hardcore, they are fundamental that should not be tampered with. I just hope this thing is making sense. If it's not, go back, go and read it and make sure you understand this thing. You understood it very well. If not, you will struggle in the examination hall. So what Lakatos tried to postulate is that scientific programs, if you like, call them research, they can be progressive in that they can predict novel facts successfully. They can also be degenerating in that they can be constantly adjusted using the protective belt to cover failures. However, unlike Thomas Kuhn, Lakatos allows competing programs to coexist and to be evaluated rationally over time. Remember, I said you should. Remember, he is mediating between Thomas Kuhn, right? I said it already. He's mediating between Thomas Kuhn and what was his name? And Karl Popper. So you should know where his research program, right, differs from Kuhn's approach, and where it differs from Karl Popper's approach. And you should be able to find exactly the middle line where he draws both Karl Popper's falsificationism and then Thomas Kuhn's sociological account of paradigms, where he draws them together, right, and reconciles them in spite of their differences, right? So if you want to compare, if you want to check, you can see that both Kuhn and Emre Lakatos describe science as structured and historically situated. However, Lakatos rejects Kuhn's idea of incommensurability by providing rational criteria. What's that rational criteria? That rational criteria is based on progressive problem shifts for evaluating theories. So what it means is that Lakatos preserves more continuity in science and places greater emphasis on methodology, or if you like, methodological rules, rather than sociological factors. Okay, I can see somebody asking me to elaborate more on what is that? I can't see what you typed. Is that positive heuristic? Positive heuristic are a kind of if you like, use do's. Use do's. If you are researching on something, the do's. There's what we call do's and don'ts. Remember that kind of slangs, right? Do's and don'ts. The positive heuristic are the do's. Things you should do to ensure that the research program is successful. Why negative heuristic are what? Things you should not do, the don'ts. Just try to understand it that way. It will help you to grasp exactly what they are. Do's and don'ts. Then the protective belt are like they are very close to the hardcore, but they are not like the hardcore. But they are hypotheses, if you like, auxiliary hypotheses, supportive hypotheses to the hardcore. But these ones, they are not fixed, they are not permanent, they are malleable. They can be modified. In fact, in philosophy of science, they are what we call working hypotheses. They are auxiliary assumptions that in the course of the research, they can be manipulated, right? They can be adapted and readapted, restructured and reorganized, depending on the findings the scientist in the field is making. So they are adjustable in order to do what? To help the researcher, right, achieve his goal. That's what we call them, the protective belt. So use do's and don'ts to delineate a positive heuristic and a negative heuristic. For more, meet those guys that presented Emre Lakatos. Read that the handout. I think I'm just looking at it now. I think it clearly explains these things more. But it explains these concepts better for you so that you can understand them. Because at the end of the day, you must be able to conceptualize these things clearly in the hall. It's very, very important. I don't know if my explanation helps you a bit. Now, remember what I just said. Emre Lakatos is a mediator between mediates two extreme positions in regarding the method, the scientific methods postulated by Thomson and who and Karl Popper. Find out how he differs from Karl Popper and how he differs from Thomas Kuhn, and find out also how, in spite of these differences, his research program was able to do what? To reconcile both Thomas Kuhn and Karl Popper. Very, very important. Very, very important. For the marking formula, it's just simple. If you are able to explain Thomas Kuhn's you are able to explain what's his name? Emile Lakatos' research program, his model. You have 12 points already. Remember, it's technical. You have to be able to, those key concepts, you must be able to explain them very, very well. Research program, what he means by research program, the hardcore, protective belt, positive heuristic, negative heuristic. You must convince me that you know what they mean. You must convince me that they know what they mean, and then be able to analyze them side by side with Kuhn. That will give you 12 points. When you're able to analyze it side by side with Thomas Kuhn's own postulation, of course, while bearing in mind Karl Popper's rational falsificationism, that one will also fetch you 6 points, making it 18. Then the remaining 2 points will accrue from your approach to the question, your methodology, and all whatnot. That makes it 20. I'm giving you the marking scheme so that you will know how your score will accrue. And if you are smart, use it to develop your preparations. Now, the next one is Paul Feyerabend. So the question on Paul Feyerabend will test your understanding. It's not just about you discussing his epistemological anarchism or preferred scientific method. No, you are going to appraise it. You should be able to point out the merits and demerits of his preferred method. And you should be able to tell me why he postulates anarchism as the preferred approach to philosophy of science. What does he mean by epistemological anarchism? What is the central thesis in his magnum opus, his major work, Against Method? Why does he postulate pluralism in terms of method and approaches to scientific research? Okay, I'm trying to read through some of the reactions I'm seeing here. What is this one saying? Lakatos with any other philosopher? Can you please, who is this? Ida Kajetan. Kajetan, if you can hear me, can you please clarify the question you are asking? You are saying Lakatos with any other philosopher? I don't really get you. What do you mean? In what regard are you asking that question? Try to specify, please. I'm looking at my screen. Ida what? Kajetan Chinaza. Specify. Your question is not clear, please. On Lakatos and any other philosopher. Specify. I will address it. So back to Paul Feyerabend's epistemological anarchism. Know it. Know what Feyerabend was reacting to that made him to postulate epistemological anarchism as a preferred approach to research, to science, to philosophy, in fact, to knowledge. Tell me why. What are his major arguments in his major work, Against Method? Why does he suggest that pluralism of method is better than singularity of method? Why does he feel that it's not possible to have one perfect or one pristine, singular, pure, unquestionable method or approach for assessing knowledge, for engaging scientific research, and all that. Why? Why does it think that we should have pluralism, plurality of method, that everything goes, right? Know it. You should know the strength of his method and the weaknesses. What could be the possible significance of this method to knowledge, to science, to philosophy, to human endeavors, to morality, and so on. I hope it's clear enough. Ochala Daniel, I can see your upload. Please, make sure you leave your reg number at the end. Ochala Daniel, make sure you add your reg number at the end, your registration number at the end of that. Okay, somebody is complaining that the answers are too long. Break it into two, send it twice. Okay? Send it twice. Just tell me continued. Put your number, break it, send it, or you can even send it in 3 times. But just make sure they all come in. I would connect it to you. If you send number it 1, tell me you are answering question number 9. Number it then. Number 9, continuation. Number 9, continuation until you finish uploading them all. I hope it's clear enough. Go to the WhatsApp section too. Use a voice note. And drop your answers. That will ensure that when I read the two and do the comparison, it will ensure that I don't give you a mark that is most appropriate to your performance. Okay. Ida Kajetan Chinaza, I'm still waiting. Your question to me is not clear. Ida Kajetan Chinaza, your question is not clear. You can repeat, please. Ogidi Flanan, I've told you, if it is too large to enter, to be put in only one comment, break it into 2 or 3 until you are able to send in all your comments or responses, okay? But just make sure you note in there that you are all those responses are a reaction to the same question. Maybe just put question 9 continued, question 9 continued until the last entry comes in. All right. Okay, I don't know who this person is. Philip Chisco 3466. Philip Chisco, if you are there, very good that you have made this observation. Get my WhatsApp number also. Go to my WhatsApp, say this thing you said here, and give me a summary of your group presentation. Mention your group there, that is group 11. Give me a summary of that group presentation. You said you presented against method, the critical exploration and investigation of Karl Popper. Go there, get my WhatsApp line, my number, go there, indicate your group, why you missed, and then give me a summary of the whole discourse of your group on Karl Popper's against method. Okay, somebody, Victor who? Umahi is clarifying Ida's question on Lakatos. Yes, Victor, you are going to link Lakatos to Thomas Kuhn and okay, you are going to link Lakatos primarily to Thomas Kuhn and secondarily in some way to Karl Popper. I hope it's clear. All right. Please, if there are other reactions, you can ask them now so that I address them. If there are other questions, then, okay, I think I've completed what you should know about Karl Popper. Sorry, about Paul Feyerabend. I've said that, okay. Now, there's also something you need to do about realism and anti-realism. Fair enough, that is the last presentation we did. Go back, get that paper, Read it very well. I think the guys did a good job on realism and anti-realism. They did a good job. Know the debates, the realism versus anti-realism debate in philosophy of science. Know that debate and be able to defend one position. Be able to take a stand and defend one position. So the debate between scientific realism and anti-realism concerns the status of observable entities. The status of observable entities as posited by scientific theories. So the debate is, what is the status of unobservable entities rather? What are these unobservable entities to begin with? And why is it a source of debate to the realists and anti-realists? Now, you should be able to state clearly the realist position in philosophy of science, not just realism in philosophy. The realism position in philosophy of science and the anti-realism position in philosophy of science. That might fetch you up to 12 marks if you do it well. Elaborate. Then you should be able to defend your preferred side, whether realism or anti-realism. Remember, we are talking about realism and anti-realism in philosophy of science, not just realism or anti-realism in philosophy. These are two different things. They are not the same. So be careful. Be careful when you are profiling your answers. When you are giving your answers, be very, very careful so that you don't mix it up. Be very, very careful. Scientific realism holds that well-confirmed scientific theories describe a mind-dependent world. We established this thing in the last class. So entities like electrons, gene, or black holes, they really exist. That's the claim of scientific realism. So realism explains the success of science, saying that our best theories work because they are at least approximately true. On the other hand, scientific anti-realism, which you see in the viewpoints of instrumentalism and constructive empiricism, they argue that theories are tools. They are mere tools for organizing experience and predicting phenomena, not literal descriptions of reality. They are just tools. Theories are not real. They are tools. They are instruments, not necessarily literal descriptions of reality. So for anti-realists, the success of science does not guarantee truth. Theories may be empirically adequate, yet metaphysically false. So anti-realists, they highlight the long history of successful yet abandoned theories, because there are many theories that are successful, but today they are not useful again. And it's because of stuff like that that anti-realists suggest that theories are mere, they are not real. They don't represent anything concrete in the world. They are just mere tools to be used in the course of experimentation and researching. So once they achieve their purpose, they are discarded. This is just a summary. So what are the types of realists and anti-realists? But majorly, know their claims. Know their claims and the implications of these claims to philosophy of science, to science, to philosophy of science, to philosophy, to knowledge acquisition, and all those not. So be able to describe or to explain realism on the one hand, in philosophy of science, anti-realism on the other hand, in philosophy of science, and be able to tell me your preferred position and be able to defend it. Take a stand and be able to defend it. For instance, you can defend realism as follows. Sure, let me leave that. Let me leave that, because if I do that, most of you will just go now and copy it. There will no longer be cross-pollination of thoughts and answers. So just go and explore, get your acts together, put your research together, and be ready to shoot in the examination hall. And then there is one more joker question. There are about 7 of them. There are 7 of them, but 6 possibilities. There's one more joker question on the structure of philosophy of science, theories, law, hypothesis, data, shaping principles. Right? Are you following me? Data shaping principle and the rest of them. And then there is another, there you have 2 options. There's another one that has to do with the futures of scientific hypothesis and theory. Here we'll talk about conservatism, testability, scope, and so on. There are 5 of them. So that and the other one will come together as one question. That is it for the revision. I'm waiting for your reaction. Is there anything that still confuses you in philosophy of science? Because after today, I'm not reacting to this again. I might have one more section with you on social and political philosophy, just to streamline your attention and make you more focused on the needed. Because I've noticed that probably the scope I gave you in the class is too broad. Okay? But for this one, I think I have done justice to the content you should expect in the exam. I am looking at your questions here. Are there any confusions? Please, those of you that are reacting to the defense, remember what I told you. Remember what I told you. Go to the WhatsApp message section. Use a voice note also to communicate your answers. Very, very important. Don't do it alone here on YouTube comment section. Go to the voice note too. Go to the voice note and do the same. If you don't, I may not see it and you'll be in trouble. Drop your comment here. Go to WhatsApp. Use a voice note to explain your answers too there. There to drop your name and your registration number. I hope it's clear. I'm looking at the screen. Is there any question going out? And for those of you that are present online, kudos to you. Unfortunately, we didn't even have up to 50 present. And this tells you why sometimes some of us get angry at your dispositions to academics. Tomorrow you see a student that doesn't know what to write, he's not here, and he will struggle in the hall. Now, if you want to show mercy, how do you show mercy when you know that you have done everything to help the students to pass, to be successful, and he is not willing to be successful? How unfortunate. So that is, by the way, if there is no any other important reaction, I think we should call it a day. All right, I'll see you when I see you. Good afternoon.